What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Bet English podcast. I'm your host, Nikola, and if you watched episode 1, you know what we're all about. Real conversations, no filters, and yes, the English is still not perfect, but here we are. And today is a very special one. Me and Nick Jensen are sitting down together for this episode because we really wanted to bring you someone who is very close to us and to the film. Our guest today is Petar Manic, and he is the lead of our One More Game. And let me tell you something about Petar. This kid, and I say kid because he was born in 2006, so he's still a teenager, but he has been acting since he was a child. His first major role was in the Macedonian film Stella back in 2020 when he was only 13 years old. That was the first Macedonian feature film made specifically for children, and Petar was the lead. He has so committed to that role that he actually broke his leg during production, and he still finished the film. That tells you everything you need to know about who this kid is. After that, he went on to work on Bistra Voda, a show in Macedonia, and then he came to us, or maybe we came to him. Either way, I mean, when we were looking for somebody to play Martin in One More Game, Petar walked in, and it was just obvious. You know, he had this natural ability to make you believe every single word he was saying on screen. And no ego, no attitude, just a young man from Macedonia with real talent and work ethic that most people twice his age really don't have. So today we are going to talk about what it was like for him stepping into the lead role, how he approached the character, and what the whole journey has meant to him. Nick and I are both here because we wanted to have this conversation together as a team, the same way that we made the film. So settle in. This is episode 2 of the Bet English podcast with Petar Manic. Here we go. Bro, so your days is now starting and mine, it's like midnight here.
God
so
damn.
like I'm like running on like 16 hours.
Jesus
so
Christ.
like it's like a very good warm up.
Yeah.
But it's on
warm up.
for everybody is gonna hear us in Macedonian and we are speaking in English. We gotta respect Mr. Spider-Man here, who
Yes.
so far has learned about 450 words in Macedonian, but it's not enough to carry a podcast.
Okay, that's
Hey,
a
that,
lot.
I mean that
You
number
see?
is down. That number is down. That's not the same.
That's
Uh-huh.
amazing, bro. But it's so nice to see you guys. It's like right
Yeah,
next
man.
to each
I
other
feel
and
the
stuff.
same. It's since from the day we started till like the end of it, my life has probably turned around, and I assume your guys as well, because it's been
Yeah.
quite some time, and
Yeah.
I'm really happy about it, because even if our lives go in some sort of separate ways, I mean, obviously you guys work together, but it's so cool for me that there's gonna be something that brings us together again, and it's this thing that we worked so much on. So yeah, I'm really
100%.
excited.
You know what hit me though the other day? I saw something completely unrelated. Somebody sent me from like off net. They were discussing about the most anticipated movies on like 2026 on a separate website, and One More Game. Just like, oh, the one of the most anticipated movies. And I was like, wow. And it's right next to The Odyssey. Christopher Nolan.
For next to
It's not
Chris.
talking,
that
it was like,
that
oh,
was
like
me.
it's The
That was
Odyssey.
me. We're next to Christopher Nolan and Meryl Streep. We're on the same.
Yeah.
And I'm
yeah,
looking at this and I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's it.
100%.
You know the thing is, for the audience, for just someone that passes by, that is true, right? For them, they see everything. That's on an equal playing field for them, because they don't know,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
But it's also it was highly anticipated. Like it's really easy to say like, oh, we knew it's going to turn out like this. But mine and Spider-Man's biggest fear, and he can say more on like the directing side, was whether or not we're going to find a 16-year-old boy essentially in Macedonia to carry out this like a role of a lifetime. And I came into that audition when you were that day, and I remember it vividly like it was yesterday. And we kind of sat down on the side. The thing that struck me the most was your confidence, because it's not sort of how do you say, it's not very often that you see a 16-year-old person in Macedonia confident in his abilities, and we really put you on the spot there that day, the way that the scene sort of transpired with Tony, and for you to come in and to be, hey, look, I'm your guy. I'm gonna, show you. I've been waiting all my life for this. I
Yeah.
completely forgot that I was talking to a 16-year-old. To me, that was like really revelation, because then you called me on a Friday. We were starting to shoot on a Monday, and he was like, hey, Koki, who's gonna pull me out of school? And I was like, what? And he was like, no, I have like classes. And it dawned on me then that you're still in high school. I had up until that point, and it was amazing also that Emilia was very understanding. Mr. Spider-Man, fun fact, we had the same teacher 20 years apart in the same
Yeah.
high school. Me and Petar went to the same high
We
school.
had the same head teacher.
So,
I mean, she was
yeah.
his teacher, and she was my head teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, yeah.
her husband is Nikola Ristanovsky.
Yeah, right.
So
The actor.
yes,
Macedonian legend. Yeah.
yeah, the Macedonian legend that is also playing in theaters here in Serbia and has
That's
like
amazing.
leading roles, and he's having, every time he does a play here, that's a masterclass.
That's amazing.
When we had for
It's like midterms.
yes, midterms. When we had our first midterm in acting here, Vesna came, and after that we went to see a play that he's in, and that guy is truly like the motherfucker here and in Macedonia. So when
Yeah.
Koki and me and you, of course, came and explained what's about to go down, she was really understanding of it, and she had a big part when it comes to the school thing, because
Yeah.
it's really hard to get that month off school, even though looking from this perspective is really not that serious. But when you're in high school and when that's what you're doing every day, it sort of is, and
Yeah.
you don't know how it's going to turn out. But she was
Yeah.
really understanding of it, and I was really happy to have her as a head teacher, because she sort of like not only said you can skip school, she also rooted for us to make this movie, which was also which was a big support, and was really understanding of
Yeah.
everything that was about to go down. So me and
It
Koki
was
know
crucial.
her.
Yeah.
It was
It
really
was, yeah.
that was
It
really
was
really
crucial.
important.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because imagine you have a teacher that's going to be bugging you every single time, whether you have to
Man,
complete your homework
I
and
wouldn't have.
stuff. And
I
it's,
wouldn't know what would I
yeah,
what would I've done if she was calling and was like, "Where are you?" or "Where's that gonna end?" Because she's completely understood how filming's going,
Yeah.
and she knew she didn't have any. That it wasn't her place to call and ask if we told her we're doing a movie. She was like
yeah,
straight away, "Okay, let's go." And she
that's amazing.
disappeared. She disappeared for a month, as it should be, to let me finish the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And we did. That was a really big part of it. But yes, I was still in high school. And not only that, I was for the next 2 years after the movie ended, I was still in high school. And then, and then I finished that part.
Yeah.
The audition for me was that confidence came from, I remember after practice, Vesna called me out of the blue and said, listen, these guys are doing an audition for a movie and they are looking for the lead role and they're doing a casting. So you should go check it out and see, and just walk in, take the notes and get the role. So that's what I sort of did. And it was so different for me from, I've been to like other auditions as well, and I know the point of the audition, right? But something about this one was sort of different. I think mid audition, I forgot that we're doing like an audition. It wasn't like I knew I was going to get the role and I knew everything, but you sort of made this atmosphere that made me focus on the scenes we're doing and focus on the temperature of the whole situation, that I sort of forgot that I'm auditioning, right? And that's sort of how I blurred out everything that's technical and just focused on what we're doing. And I realized throughout the way, and from this perspective, like we're we're one semester in this faculty, and I learned that it's always what you're doing. It's what you're doing that gets you going, whatever you're stuck
Mm.
in something.
Yeah.
And that's, looking back, that's what I did. With you guys, we just sat down and we did what was written there. Even though it was some, even if it was like in Macedonian and it maybe it wasn't translated like I would say it, we still found a way to make it happen, and we did.
Mhm.
And that's what we did throughout the movie. We just
Exactly.
found a
The whole
way,
film.
and we did it. And that's why it looks the way it looks. And I'm really, really happy for it. So after the audition, I walk out and I remember, wait, you're auditioning. Like, because we sat down, I remember, and we talked about what
Yeah,
my
that's the
plan
thing.
was,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We were talking about it. And it was so, like, I've never done that, because usually what my experience is, there's a casting director, there's a camera, and there's a director. They bring you water and they're like, okay, hello. It's formal, and they're trying to make it informal, but it is, right?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
feeling you get. And you get all nervous and you're like, oh my God. But this was, I didn't feel for a minute like that, especially when we sat down and we started talking about how I want to, study in Serbia. So I didn't even feel the
Yeah.
audition as like a classical, you would say, audition that you go into
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah, I think it was very, in that sense, also informal, and that's also a little bit the way of, the way that just we are, right? We are not people that are sitting behind the desks in suits and ties and just, do your thing and peace and bye, and that's it. It becomes like trying to find a connection, which was right away
Yes.
for us super important, for me very important, because we knew we didn't have like a million people also auditioning, and then more than just, it's a whole package that we would need for Martin, which is, of course, he has to be able to speak English good enough, and you qualified for all of that, and we were just vibing and chilling together right at the get-go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and that was just super important. Not to say, man, it was still difficult to, this whole casting process was very hard for me, because it was the first time for me to do it this way, and with all the all the pressure coming in there, having to do everything within 1.5 months or whatnot.
The number one thing that really stood out to me was the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That confidence was just, skyrocketing, because I know how it is to be from Macedonia. And especially when somebody comes in and it's such a opportunity of a lifetime and it's presented as such. And I love that it always comes down to where that confidence comes from. It's from the support system, right? I love how Vesna told you, it's like, hey, there's these guys, they're doing an audition, go there and get the role. There is no other way.
I mean, right?
Know, and
that's,
I love that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I love that. There is only one way to go through life, and you got to do it with that confidence. There is no other way. And I just love that. And it comes from people when they believe in you, then it's really up to you to go in, because you have the skill, you have the talent, and then what you do with it, and you go in and you crush it. And it's also, you connect on a human level.
Yeah, it was literally that. And it was sort of like in at that time, I remember it's been a while since I filmed something. And, what I noticed is that it's also some sort of training when you film. So in theater, for example, it's different because you go every day and you do stuff that, helps you go on stage, right? But then you have filming where by the end of like the 5th day, then that's actually where you sort of get into training for it, because the schedules, the cameras, the lighting, all of these, changing the angles, with Taylor and everything, that's also some sort of training, and something that I haven't done for quite some time, because how that works in Macedonia.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally me after practice, I was that tired.
Yeah.
We were swimming for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 kilometers. It was some type of practice that really drained me. And Vesna Petruševska called me on the phone and was, hello. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And she said, listen, these guys are doing a movie. They're coming from America. You should check it out and you should get the role. Go and get the role. And I was like, and I'm on the phone and I'm like, oh, okay, I will, I guess. And
That's
then
fire.
you know, you forget everything when you walk in. You just remember what this mentor of yours that's been with you from, you know, the day you started when you started having an understanding of how things work in this industry. When she calls you, when Vesna Petruševska calls you and says,
Yeah.
there's a movie, go get the role, you can react whatever you want, but when you get in, that's the only
Mindset. Yeah.
mindset you're gonna walk in with, because
Absolutely.
otherwise, why are you walking in? That was the same thing she said when we were preparing for this college I'm in.
Mhm.
Because
Mm.
I don't know if you guys talked about it, but this college here is like in Serbia, there's a bunch of faculties about when you can apply and study acting. But this particular one in Belgrade is like it is the hardest one to get into. Like
Yeah, very, very
literally.
prestigious, and the same is like
Yes.
only like a
It's
few select people get in, and
yes.
it's a
There's like
bunch of applicants.
yeah, there's like 400 applicants and like only 10 of us get in. And it's a really, really hard and draining process. I mean, that's what they're aiming for. And what we did is, coming from Macedonia, as you know, Koki will relate to, when you go up to your parents and say, listen, I want to go and try shoot my shot in Belgrade, everyone was like, what?
Yeah.
What did you do to
Yeah.
get in there, you know?
Yeah.
And the only particular person that was like, all right, let's do this, was Vesna, because it was the same.
Yeah.
She was like, okay, right, okay, find 2 monologues and we're gonna do it. And that's what
Yeah.
we did. That's what
The
we
same thing.
literally that's
Yeah.
what we did, you know? And
That's
she
amazing. Yeah.
introduced me to all of these, you know, things in theater that all, of course, I learned because I needed to know them for this audition, because it's also somewhat of an audition. And I did Hamlet, and it was the most I've ever done on stage as a monologue, because I have
Wow.
never, if you told me like 2 years ago, listen, you're going to do a Hamlet monologue, a classical monologue in an audition in Belgrade, and you're going to get in, because what's the thing here is that every professor ever in this college tells you don't do classical monologues because you're young, you can't do that. Vesna was never in that, you know, she was like, okay, do that, let's go.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
the drive, right? And
Yeah.
that's how you walk in an audition, that's how you go get a role, that's how you do
Yeah.
everything. It's
Yeah.
for the smallest things ever.
Yeah.
When you walk into any room, you just say, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
The outcome doesn't matter, because you're not supposed to think about the outcome.
And
There's
that's
no
how it was for me in Bulgaria too. The only
Yes,
reason my
yeah.
parents ever let me go audition, I was like, I'm gonna go study directing in Bulgaria. There's like, there's no way he gets in.
Yes,
Like
yes,
that's like,
yeah,
okay, you go
parent.
and try, so you don't hold it against
Yeah.
us. Then 10 years later, but then there is no way. And I love that, because it just shows how close your relationship is and how important it is for you to have somebody like Vesna by your
Of
side
course.
to be, hey, go in and get it, do it.
Yeah, man, that's
But you cannot get in doing Hamlet. Why not? Watch me do
why
it.
not?
That's
Let
the
me
thing. Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
like, oh,
nailed
this
it,
is
by the way. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's really beautiful. And it really shows. I was leading up to that point. I was, honestly very worried, because we were talking internally. It was like, which way it's going to go, whether or not we're going to find somebody in Macedonia. And there is a lot of very good actors, but just finding somebody out of high school with that
Yeah, that
confidence
age.
to
It's the
carry
age that
a
was
role
so.
like that, just the
How
ages.
many Martins did you see before you?
No, yeah. So that's not much. That's also. Let's see.
I think you saw 3, right?
I
4?
think 3 series that were really
Yeah.
wanting, right? Christian, Bodan, and you.
Yes.
I know Vedran also had an aspiration, but that was sort of shot off right away because of the English, and also because he was way more of a Dimitar, the way he just felt and looked for Dimitar.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, it was just between you 3. But I mean, In the end, it's
And
an
those are all
astronomical
three
difference.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
three
I was
Between
gonna
different,
the
yeah.
three, it's not like you
At some
guys are like,
point-
oh,
yeah,
in the end of the day.
At some point, I asked you about Bodan because Bodan is a friend of mine, and I remember you said, yeah, but he was. You didn't say but. You just said that he would have been a really different Martin,
Yeah.
and you would prefer, something else. So I remember that they were all good, but they were sort of different, and I
Yeah.
was closest to the one Martin you were looking for.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's well said. The closest to, because right when we got started, we were not, because there is a whole range within Martin that is super important to sort of hit, right? I clearly remember this conversation with you, like, okay, he's obsessed, he's super focused. Now we have to really start feeling for this guy, which in the back of my mind, Bodan, because of it felt like his, let's say, insecurity a little bit. He was a little shy. There is a little bit in him there that really worked for also the Martin role. But
Sorry,
I
out on what you put out there because
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
for sure.
Look,
we're
on
gonna
the end,
talk a lot.
Names,
Yeah,
just mentioning names is a problem.
we have nothing to hide, right? You're very transparent through the whole process.
Yeah, of course.
And it's it has always been on like each
so-
side,
But it's
No,
just, I
that's-
want to now just saying, now I'm realizing when we're doing this, it's also still a little bit new to us.
Yeah.
Mentioning
Yeah.
names is unnecessary because without mentioning a name, you would know where we would be talking about. Right? But the thing is, the actor has to be able to carry through and, carry this movie and do all these shooting days, day 1 to day 21 and a half.
Yeah.
And be there, right? And we needed every single scene again. And I think that was also one of the contributing factors why you were absolutely the choice for the
No,
role.
but it's also when we were filming, it's like every time I see you, because the conditions, I mean, we were opening up in a 200-year-old house. We were joking around with the G&E crew that the house was older than United States. It was more than 250 years, for real. We did not have a clearance for the whole crew to go on the second floor because we were afraid that it's going to collapse. So we had to like really
Jesus Christ.
divide and conquer in a sense.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was very dicey. And when we were going into the shoot, I knew we are not starting with some scene that it's going to be a vanilla and then we're going to warm up into it. I mean, you're going to be thrown into the deep end immediately. The way that really stood out to me watching you work is that no matter what the external factor was, there was literally a light on fire outside on the crane. And after that, it was the scene in the bedroom and I'm watching and you're just confidence, yeah, we said it like 100 times, but laser focus, you're like locked in. When I see you, I know sometimes I'm going to come in, I'm going to say a joke, I'm going to do this, that, like we like joke around back and forth, but no, like when I see you, you're like locked in. I was like, oh, Petar is like dialed in. I don't want to bother him. I know that game phase in a sense. That's probably Steph Curry goes in and drops 50. And that's, you go in, like, that's what it takes. The age being that young and to appear the way that you carry yourself. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, because it's truly unique to be that young and yet that experienced in the way that you go in and you approach things. It's amazing, and hats off to you, buddy, for that. And, how lucky we are to have found you. And I think that this is a beginning of a beautiful friendship in that sense, and a lot of movies, because look, the only way is up. That's because when you realize that you are now probably only 18, 19 years old, right? You're going to be 20 years old, and imagine yourself in 5-10 years. If you continue on the same trajectory, if you keep the same hunger and same chip on your shoulder, the sky is the limit for you, bro. And that's what really excites me. When people are going to see this film, they're going to see a version of Petar that was captured in a time and space And we were saying with Nick when we were talking the other day, also on the other podcast, was there was really a limited amount of time and a window to make this film. And it's kind of a
Yeah.
glimpse, like we caught lighting in a bottle. And now the world is your oyster, that you can go in and you can do whatever you want because you have the experience, you know what it takes. And when it was the hardest, that's when you showed up, even in the basement, all the dust and everything that was happening around, that those were very difficult
I
conditions
want
to
to.
work in. And it was, I mean, insanity to go through that and then deliver a performance like that at an
Mhm.
age of 16, nonetheless. Remarkable. That's all I can say.
Petar, can you talk a little bit about how you prepared for the role? And also, I know, you stayed at your grandma's and how you sort of isolated yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I could. So the thing about the isolation was because sort of when I first read the script, of course I knew that Martin had this thing that I really related to, and that was he always went, with the instinct, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he never rationalized stuff, and even if he did, he never rationalized the whole thing. He was just, going with his instinct. And when I read the script and when I wrote that down as sort of a note, I realized that we were shooting for 21 days, right? 22. And I come to think of it, it wouldn't be like a good idea to be at home with my parents, not because they would, do anything specifically, but because I sort of needed that time for me to get away and just sort of be in this one room where I would, be with myself and figure out everything that I needed for some particular scenes that, when you read the script, what's, happening and what you're doing and everything, you have it on paper, but when you read it and when you throw it away and when you're alone, that's when the process for me begins. When I have nothing else, like I don't have the script, I read the script, I don't worry about anything else. School is out, right? Practice is out, everybody is notified that I'm filming this movie. And I sent messages to my close friends and to obviously family. Listen, I'm gonna film a movie and I'm gonna need some time alone. So if I'm not calling or texting, just know it's nothing. I
Yeah.
have no intention of not talking to you. I just need time for myself. So really, when I sent out those messages, I was okay, I was safe. Everybody knows the script is here, everything's set. Let's do this. And I remember I sort of went to my grandpa's like 3 days before the shoot to, set everything up for the upcoming days. And as I was telling you, I sent out those messages and I read the script and I was there. I was alone. And my process begun right that moment when I started being with myself and with my thoughts, and how, because me and Martin have a certain, where we share something, and that's the drive and bit and the ambition for something. And of course it's different. We're different, but that's the drive. We have that something that just keeps you going every day. Like it's feeding you. It's driving you to just grab everything, right? And knowing that, that's why I did it, because I knew that this is going to drive me and feed me throughout the days by only simply by doing it. And that's why I was in focus all the time, because every external factor that was happening, sure, I knew it. I knew what was happening, and I knew every problem we had. I knew everything, basically, how people were reacting to it and talking about it, but there just wasn't space for it, because I wouldn't put that pressure on myself to get away from everybody and let some external factor get in the way. That's why the focus was there all the time. That's what also helped me to focus, me being with myself, because when I went out to my grandpa's and when I was alone, that also helped me focus, because there wasn't any, how is it going? What are you doing? Or what's the movie about? I don't know what the movie is about. We haven't even filmed it. So like that's what helped me focus as well. So
Mhm.
the process began right where I was left there. And I think throughout filming, it was every day there was something new about Martin that I discovered. every day there was something that I just discovered. And even if I read the scene and I knew what I was supposed to do and what my objectives were, on set, there were times where on set I was like, oh my God, this is it. There's something completely new out of the blue that just came in, and I'm like, this is how I'm gonna do it. I mean, what do I have to lose, right? It's a take. If it doesn't work, you come up, you give me direction, and I, change it. But most of the time, it did work, and that's also the similarity instinct, right? And as I was saying, with this small digression that I made, I started right there where I isolated myself from everybody, just for the sake of focusing on it and not letting external factors get in the way. And I just remember what Martin is that everything is happening to him. Of course, it's new, and not one bit of it is luck. Okay, he had this thing that he had an opportunity. He had the winning mindset. Nothing was going to stop him get what he wants, and he just went for it. That's luck. That's literally luck. To have the mindset, to have the opportunity, and to take action, right? And that's exactly what drove him. And when I was reading the script, it's repetitive. I mean, of course, that's
Yeah.
a script, but it's repeating those things.
Yeah.
Right? There's opportunity. There's the Mitar that says to him who's on the phone, he has the opportunity, he has the mindset that he wants to, and he takes action. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter that that's his best friend, that he sort of doesn't care in a way when he gets there. He doesn't care about his mother that's sick. He does. He has this care, but the drive and the feeding of this game doesn't
Overcomes
let that doesn't meet the space for caring that much. And that for me, when I sat down, I was like, okay, that's the guy. That's the guy. Just action, action. Okay, opportunity and mindset.
Hey,
And
Petar,
I put myself in that same thing, right? Action, mindset, and all of the opportunities that there were, and that was sort of the whole thing throughout everything that we did, right? That's the mindset I was in the whole time, even though we were filming a movie, right? And that it was over. That's I think when I realized that those three things, for me, it was okay. I have it. Let's do this for 22 days, and we're gonna film the movie. So the process was sort of, the isolating part was mostly because I needed to focus and be with myself, and that's where I sort of realized what the drive means to Martin. So that was my creative process.
Very nice.